My father was a lighthouse keeper. My mother was a queen. But life has a way of bringing people together.
We could unite our worlds one day.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Sub Beacon. I'm Victor Mattis, along with Sonny Bunch and Jonathan V. Last. I'd like to remind you the Sub Beacon is available on iTunes and Google Play. Just look at our podcasts and search for Sub Beacon. You'll easily find us. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a review. And special thanks to all of our listeners for retuning in to the Sub Beacon, which somehow, in that first main episode, led to our cracking the top 10 on iTunes TV and film category, which is well over 4,000 podcasts, and we came in at number 9. Number 10 was The Good Place.
Take that.
I like
Good
that.
Place.
Fork you guys.
Although I'd like to point out Kyle Smith, our friend Kyle Smith, had noticed further up on that top 10 list was Fatal Voyage. You know Fatal Voyage? It's the mysterious death of Natalie Wood. And as he said, Natalie Wood has been dead for 35 years and she's still whipping your ass. So my thought was a future episode where the three of us go on a little boat cruise, but only two of us come back.
Come back.
I don't know. I think Jonathan is. I think you're Robert Wagner. That's my thought.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay. So anyway, Happy New Year, fellas.
Happy New Year.
JVL.
How was your Christmas? Oh, we did that already.
We did that. Did we? How are you?
Great.
And tell us what's going on in your life.
A whole bunch of things. We can talk about it later. I am curious as to know how you are, Sonny.
I'm fine.
Yeah?
Why? Do you know something I don't know?
Well, I just,
Have you talked to my doctor? Do I have the cancer?
The gout.
Do I have the gout?
Not the gout. Coming up. You wait for that update.
Gout.
Not the gout.
No. How was your first New Year's with as many children as adults in the house?
It was fine. We didn't go.
Did you set off fireworks outside?
We didn't go to the lovely Victorino Mattis New Year's Eve party. That's out the window now. We did not set off any fireworks because
I'm sorry, the what?
Yeah, it's an annual
JVL,
thing.
you don't
wanna...
your wife gets the paperless post and she never responds.
Yeah, so
you'll have to ask her every
year.
year.
Every
year.
Okay, well, it's only somebody from my household.
Oh, is it?
Getting it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But no fireworks. No. It was funny. We were asleep by 10:30. So
obviously.
So we watched about 40 minutes of The Big Lebowski, and then we were like, let's just go to bed.
Question.
Yes.
More for Vic than for you. You and I grew up in the shadow of the Times Square,
yes.
Dick Clark,
yes,
New Year's Rockin' Eve, everybody with the glasses, with the year on
yes.
them.
Yes.
Did you ever find that attractive?
No. I mean, it always.
Wait, do you mean the idea of going to this event?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because even as a child, before I was as misanthropic as I am now,
It never
I
appealed.
would look at that on television and think that looked like the most miserable experience in the universe and like a bunch of idiots trying to convince themselves that they were having fun.
But there were
when they couldn't possibly actually be having fun.
But I mean, there must be something to it because there's millions of people in Times Square and it's raining. This last one was raining. It's cold, it's miserable and raining, and they're all out there. My concern is I think they have a very strict booze policy. I don't think it's like you could walk around with like open bottles of champagne. I don't think that's allowed, I think, and that would be immediately a turnoff for me. Because
you're sober, you're cold, you're
this is terrible.
For
New
you can't
Year's.
pee. You gotta,
Where
you
are
gotta
the
hold it in.
bathrooms?
Oh yeah,
where are the bathrooms?
Yeah,
you know where the bathrooms are? New York City.
Your pants.
New York City is a bathroom.
It's an open
Just
sewer.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
whatever.
You
One
know,
day, subway.
But even no, I mean,
Go down to the
it's like,
subway for
there's
your
the
bathroom.
One day
Porta
There's
John.
a trench.
One day a real rain's gonna come.
The Times Square Porta John is just not appealing. I mean, and where do you go? So I have no idea. It never appealed. It always looked. They look happy. They look crazy. But it just never appealed
But
to me
people are
because
stupid.
the weather,
People
and
can talk
booze.
themselves into anything.
People are stupid, JBL.
right?
That's a very good point.
And stupid people can talk themselves into believing that anything is fun.
Yes. Oh, so anyway, that's my answer to your question. No, it never appealed to me.
Okay.
Sonny. Continue on, please.
No, I just wanted to. I just wanted to bring up. I don't really have anything to talk about this weekend. I wanted to bring up this story that everyone was yelling about. One of the many stories that people on Twitter were yelling about during our break. This is
were
how
they
I
angry
spent.
were people angry?
People
on
were
Twitter?
angry
I've been on
on
a Twitter
Twitter.
Rumspringen, as you know.
Well, you should come back because everyone's angry all the time. You'll fit right in. So the thing that everyone is angry about is this woman, a bride, said that she sent out invitations to her wedding, and she said no children invited. No, please don't bring your children. We want this to be an adults event. I don't know if it was a swingers wedding or what.
I was going to say, does that mean triple X style masks and everybody does whatever they want?
It's basically you've seen
Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
Where's Lily Sobieski?
That wedding sounds awesome.
And of course, somebody shows up with their kid, and the kid sits through the ceremony and cries a little bit during the vows, and of course, the bride.
How
gets very
old? Question: How
upset.
old is the child?
Young. I can't remember exactly, but
Are we
young.
talking baby, 4, 10?
Infant.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Somewhere below the age of reason.
So then what happens, Sonny?
Under 5.
Yeah. Well, I thought the age of reason was 7.
I believe that according to the Catholic Church, it's when you start
You
taking
do
confession, which is 6 or 7.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Please.
Anyway, so young child, they go to the reception, and the child is still at the reception and making noise or whatever. So the bride comes over and says, "You got to go. You all got to get out of here.
I don't care where you go, but you got to get up on out of here.
You got to get out of this wedding." So
It's
anyway,
disruptive.
of course, everyone. So people were taking both sides of this. There's the people who lined up behind the bride, and the people who lined up behind the family and said it was ridiculous. And I'm curious to know where you guys come down on, because I have thoughts on this, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts first.
Victorino.
Really? Oh, our wedding, as you might remember, JVL, which is 14, going on 14, going on 15 years ago. That was adults only. It's not like we had it mentioned.
Yeah, it was.
It was. So was yours.
That was my sister.
No. It didn't say anywhere on the invite adults only, but it was like you and +1, right? You and a guest invited, and it gives you option 1 or 2. So it's understood that there were no kids now, and so nobody brought kids except my good friend Todd Palladino, his cousin Allison, who I'm also good friends with. She had a little newborn, and she and her mother-in-law and her mother came down, and the mother babysat the baby in the hotel room while we had the wedding, and then they brought the baby to brunch, and it was delightful, and that was very considerate. It's not like we're going to show up at the reception. That's crazy. Mass ceremony or whatever you have planned for your wedding, ritual, shall we say? Yeah, that's that's one thing. You bring the kids to that 45 minutes, an hour, whatever.
Ugh.
But the reception, there, you pay a per person thing. It's a
Right.
per plate,
Well,
and a lot of people don't
this is-
realize
but
it's
this-
$100 a plate or whatever it is.
That
It's
baby
insane.
could drink through $100 worth of booze.
Taking
If it's
up
a
space.
Mattis baby.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that's a good point. But also, you don't need the little kid running around. It's not that kind of day after. Some weddings are like that. That's great. But if you have in mind for your special one day that is not part of the plan, then it's not part of the plan. JVL.
I have complicated thoughts on this because on the one hand, I am generally very non-judgmental with other people's parenting, but for one specific topic, which is keeping children up past their natural bedtimes.
Oh.
Because what you are doing as a parent when you say, take your child to the Cheesecake Factory at 10:30 at night, which is a thing I have seen, right? Or have them out. What you are doing is you are setting your child up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
Kids have natural circadian rhythms, natural bedtimes that their bodies want to go. And when you yoke your pleasure, you yoke your children's sleep schedule to your own pleasure, you are asking that kid to fail, and you are then forcing everybody around you to deal with the consequences of your failure. And it's just selfish. It's bad for the kid. Nobody enjoys it. You don't... Just your kid knows when your kid needs to go to bed. Your kid has a regular bedtime. You should adhere to that. So if this was a night wedding, I sort of automatically think, well, no, what are you doing? You can't have a kid at a wedding reception at 10 o'clock at night. What do you? On the other hand, And I understand the bride wanting to have it be adults only. That's understandable too. On the other hand, if somebody violates the wish, what sort of person are you that at your wedding day you care enough to then go over and say, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm going to send security over.
You got to get out."
That's a weird thing, and it leads me to
Bridezillish.
wonder if there is if this was actually like some cousin that the bride and groom secretly hated and were hoping wouldn't show up to the wedding anyway, some like distant relatives like that. Because it just doesn't scan to me.
The child's father was the groom.
It doesn't scan to me that anybody could care enough, like mere moments after becoming engaged in the sacrament of marriage with the Lord God, uniting them as one flesh together, could care enough to be like, oh, but there's a child over here. They got to get out. How could that impact your happiness? Just at that point, let it go. Move on. Enjoy your
There's
wedding.
also really one quickly thing, Sonny, because I want to then hear what you have to say about this. Logistically, on your wedding day, you're not supposed. The bride and the groom are not supposed to do any of the work. Like that's why you have the groomsmen and the bridesmaids for. So even if you felt that way, you would have one of your minions go over and say, "Hey, come on," like Al Neary in Godfather 2, and escort the, what's his name? Yeah, the wife, the bits off the dance floor. Okay,
Think back to your wedding, Victorino and Sonny, right? Your weddings, the entire reception is spent circulating to socialize and say hello to everybody that you love, and you barely have time for it.
You barely have to
the
eat
idea
or
that
dance. Going around tables.
The behavior of any one guest, even a very tiny human being guest, could impact your happiness seems bizarre, and I don't understand it.
Yeah. All right.
I think
well
Sonny,
taken.
My thing is that I think basically everybody in the story is terrible. Like if you specifically set out beforehand, no children, you kind of come across as an ogre, right? Like what if somebody shows up with a little baby and they, like a mom with whatever, somebody very small, can't really sit at a table and take up a plate, because that is also a thing. Like I get it. I get like the idea that you have assigned seating and you've got, $150 a plate or whatever, and like you don't want like 3-year-olds running around messing up the whole thing. But also, look, if that is what the bride and groom have asked for, if that is what they have said on the invitation, no children allowed, we don't want any, we just want adults, we don't want any kids around, and you show up with a kid, you're the bad guy. You are the bad guy. Like you it's their day, they have the rules, it's their party, they can do whatever they want, and if you don't want to do that, then don't go. But if you still show up with the child, you are in the wrong. So I think basically everybody in this story is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it. Just if you don't want to, if you can't be separated from your children for that long for whatever reason, because the child is nursing, whatever, then don't go.
Would you agree though that it is strange for the bride to again?
It's
like so you ask somebody, you ask people to do something, and it's like if you say it's black tie and somebody shows up just wearing a blazer, would you ask them to leave?
Yes. Well, it depends on how nice the blazer is, I guess. But
you're a sartorial.
Look,
purist.
Rules are rules. Does the wedding start after 6 p.m.?
This isn't Nom, Donnie.
Does the wedding start after 6 p.m.? Because if they're not in black tie,
you're a farmer. You don't even need look. You don't need to ask for black tie. If the start date is 7 o'clock, it should be implied.
I mean, it's tails basically.
We did black tie optional, and I think the majority of our guests showed up in black tie.
I think all weddings should be black tie optional.
It's very it's very nice. I'm going to throw this out here now because I think I could talk about this now, just as an example of something similar to this story. Many years ago, there was a holiday party that we had at the Weekly Standard, and it was at Bill Crystal's house. And it was pretty explicit on the invitation or so, or not it was on the invitation, but it was understood, no kids. No kids, right? It was usually we bring the kids. Almost always there were kids going to the party. But for whatever reason, it was decided, maybe it wasn't even at Bill's house, but it might have been at Terry's house or Fred's, but they said, this is just going to be adults. So we said, okay, fine. We had to get a sitter or whoever to watch the kids while, Kate and I went to the house. And everybody showed up, just adults. A friend of ours then shows up.
A friend whose name rhymes with...
No, not even that. And brought their kids. And all of a sudden, we were like, hey, how come they get to bring their? How come they brought their kids and everyone else was told not to bring their kids, and what a pain that is, and that's not fair to the rest of us who have to get sitters. And they quickly realized that they were the only ones with kids and that this was an adults-only party, they left. And they brought the kids up. They might have come back later. I think I remember who it was, but I'm not going to take the chance. I'm not taking the chance.
Is this a real thing? Because I have no memory of this.
Yeah.
And
you were not at the party. You were not.
Obviously, I wasn't at the party. But all of the Weekly Standard
were
parties
very family-friendly.
were very family-friendly.
That was what made this interesting and memorable.
I have a memory of being at a Weekly Standard Christmas party at Fred Barnes' house when we only had Flash. Mm-hmm. And Flash was like 11 or 12 months old, crawling and cruising but not walking. Mm-hmm. And I had one of these moments like Mary and Joseph on the way home from Jerusalem where I had lost track of him, and I found my wife and I said, "Where is Flash?" And she said, "I thought you had him." And I was like, "Argh!" And immediately what I'm thinking is not like, oh, my son is being trampled underfoot, but like he's breaking something expensive.
Oh, right.
And so I go running from room to room. Where is he?
In Fred's house, no less.
In Fred's house. And I find him. And he is in the family room. And he and Britt Hume are on hands and knees together, chasing each other around the coffee table. And Britt is laughing with him, and he is laughing, trying to eat Britt's nose. And Britt is like, "This guy's fantastic. Whose is he?" And Britt Hume had been making sure that my kid was okay. It was fantastic.
But that's the way it was.
This is how all those parties were.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting. I'll have to go through the files to see if I can remember this.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you, Sonny.
Yes, that's my weekend.
All right,
that's what I've spent doing, yelling on about things on Twitter. That's how I spend most of my weekends.
That's how the Lord wanted you to celebrate His birth.
That's the day of rest for me, all on Twitter.
Thank you.
The day of anger, the Sabbath, the day of anger.
Shomer Shabbos. We should just do
Big Lebowski lines
all day. People won't get tired of that. Vic, how was your weekend?
Well, Sonny, I have come to the realization that I need to, among many things in the new year, I need to lose some weight.
Oh.
I need to lose some weight. So I had a lovely Christmas. The Christmas day was actually spent not far from here, down the road at my in-laws' apartment. They had come down from Connecticut because
they're pied-à-terre.
They're pied-à-terre. And Captain Bill Dwyer and his family was there, and we were all there, and we had a lovely time. We exchanged presents. And they have a beautiful apartment with a view of the city, and it's just it's white carpet. I mean, it's just everything is very nice and neat in that apartment. And I was a little bit in my cups, and then I decided to sit on the arm of the couch, and then all of a sudden I heard a big snap.
Oh no!
I broke the arm of the couch.
Oh,
like it collapsed. Now it has upholstery. So the upholstery was there.
Did anyone else notice? Did you just sort of get up and be like,
I tried
what was that?
I jumped up immediately.
Kate, what did you do?
I jumped up immediately, but they all froze. And it was so clear because it was a loud snapping sound, and you could see it collapse. And I jumped up. So my mother-in-law is upstairs in the kitchen, and so she says, "What's that? What's that?" And I immediately yell up. I go, "It's nothing." I said, "It's nothing." And my wife and my brother-in-law are already doubled over laughing, and then my niece Annabelle yells up, "Uncle Vic broke the couch," and so that's sort of how it happened, and it came down. My father-in-law had a sort of amused look on his face, but he wasn't laughing as hard as Bill was. And
so wait, whose couch was this?
This is my in-laws' couch.
This is
your
main
living room.
Mother-in-law.
Your
mother-in-law's couch in the main living room overlooking the city. And I broke the arm, and I tried to lift it up through the upholstery, like pressing it, lifting it up, and that didn't really work. And so that was sort of a hard realization for me that I don't know. I mean, I think it could have been anybody who would have sat there. The same thing would have happened. It was not me.
Yeah, that's okay. You know what? Your father-in-law was probably ready to build a new couch.
I'm sure he was. He could do it at wood. It gives him an excuse to go back to wood shop and put this together. But I was happy to. Levity, add levity to the moment, and Captain Bill Dwyer, all he said was "nice going, fat ass," is what he said. So that was that. But I did realize I had to. I'm going to try to lose weight and also cut back on a little bit of the drinking. I had Tom Abella's eggnog.
Question.
Yes. Sonny.
You said you were a little bit in your cups.
Yeah, a little bit.
Would you say that you tripped onto this couch?
No, I plopped onto it.
You just oofed.
I just oofed.
Okay.
I oofed into it and then snapped.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, but I did break out. I was going to mention Tom Abella's eggnog, which was really terrific but powerful stuff. I had it with Lauren McCormick. Yes, on New Year's Eve. And anyway, it was really strong. And then, of course, I made the annual pitcher of Manhattans.
Oh, that's good. That's a good picture.
Yes, thank you. And the wine before that, and then there was champagne. So it leads me to Gout Break 2019. The
Gout Watch.
The gout continued to linger until yesterday. It would have this sort of burning feeling. I can't show you my shoes are all tied up, and then
take them off. I want to see it.
I'm dying to see it. It's gone away, but it was. I was up in New Jersey after Christmas, and so my father finally said, "Enough is enough. I'm putting you back on the meds." And so I'm on the. If any one of my fellow gout listeners are listening, I am back on the Xyloprim. Get the prednisone. Sorry,
I don't know.
That's an old country for old men. The mother, the old mother. Where's my prednisone? Didn't see it.
Is this what it looks like?
It does not look like that. Thank you for that lovely image on. There's a lot of interesting images on Google Image. So it is not that. But anyway, so I'm trying to cut back on alcohol. Beginning next week. Look at that. What
there really is gout porn.
Oh my gosh. Why would you type that in? That's terrible.
I was just curious.
Oh. That's what you always say. Okay, so anyway, cutting back
Things
on
are getting weird in the
yes,
studio.
Cutting back on the
no children invited to the Sub Beacon podcast studio. I can tell you that right now.
Totally inappropriate based on the things you are now typing in. Stop typing. Anyway, I'll try to do this cut back because it's unclear to me if it's the food or the drink that's the cause of this thing.
Yeah, totally unclear. It's a mystery.
It's unclear. But I did over the break drink like a fish. Speaking of which, over the weekend, Aquaman took in another $52 million in its second week, followed by Mary Poppins Returns with $28 million and Bumblebee in third place with $20 million. Actually, the top three movies at the box office are all in their second week, so obviously Aquaman is much bigger. I'd love to hear your box office thoughts, especially about Aquaman.
Here is my main thought on Aquaman. That headphone thing, we're gonna have to figure out what's going on there. Here's my main thought about Aquaman. Everyone keeps saying that the DC expanded universe is a dead thing. That it is as a business proposition a big misfire and it's dead and it's going away. And all of these movies keep making money with the exception of Justice League. Like, put Justice League aside for a moment. Aquaman has now, as of this moment, or as of Tuesday, actually, it's not even as of this moment, has now grossed more than Wonder Woman worldwide. Aquaman has grossed $822 million. It will gross more than Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. It will probably do somewhere between $900 million and $1 billion worldwide. It is a massive, massive hit.
Yeah, but that's only because it's so good.
If you had told me, we'll get to that in a second. If you had told me that the biggest hit out of the DC universe would be a movie about Aquaman, I would have laughed in your face 10 years ago. And yet here we are,
like a real Sonny Bunch laugh.
Yeah, I would have guffawed. I would have squealed with laughter. And I am kind of Warner Brothers is in such a weird position because they have to make another Aquaman movie now. You have to make another Aquaman movie. You can't not make another Jason Momoa, James Wan Aquaman movie, just like you could not make another Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot Wonder Woman movie. So the question then becomes, what do they do with Superman and Batman, who are theoretically the marquee figures of this universe and have again, all of those movies have made money too, again, except for Justice League, but all of those movies have made money too. Man of Steel made money, not as much as they would have hoped, but more than, say, Superman Returns or basically any of the Supermans except for the first two, the Christopher Reeve ones. Batman vs Superman made money. Justice League didn't, but Justice League really only didn't make money because they spent an extra $100 million on reshoots.
Justice League didn't make money because it had Cyborg in it, and audiences are racist.
Maybe it's possible. It's possibly
cyborgs.
True. Possibly true. But look, here's everyone keeps talking about how this universe is dead. It's clearly not dead, but Warner Brothers clearly wants to kill it, right? So what happens? What happens? Where do they go from here? I don't know.
And do you remember in previous episodes, we've made all sorts of jokes about Aquaman and how awful it's going to be and how terrible it's going to bomb. And the trailer, we all hated the trailer, and yet here we are. So this is very sort of disconcerting.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what what we're gonna end up doing here. But again, if you look at these numbers, this movie would be a middle of the pack to top middle of basically. It will probably end up being if you put it into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it would be the 7th highest grossing movie of all time by the end of its run. Yeah, it's a big hit. It's a big hit. So what happens?
What happens now, JV?
What happens?
You saw it.
I saw it, and Flash sort of looked over to me, I would say 2/3 of the way through, and said, this is really bad, isn't it?
And Flash loved Justice League.
And Flash thought Justice League was good. I don't know. I am mystified not by the opening of the movie, but by the week 2 hold. The week 2 hold, I found to be one of the most mystifying box office results.
What was the drop percentage?
Can we just discuss for a moment that one of the reasons Aquaman is so successful is because Disney crapped the bed by putting Solo out in May.
Correct.
Instead of
Christmas.
So I have always argued that the biggest mistake that Disney
Excellent point.
Star Wars made was putting Solo out in May because it follows hot on the heels of The Last Jedi, which was a disappointment to many people, and it freed up that December spot that they had dominated for 3 straight years. I mean, they had 3 straight movies that grossed $1 billion in the Christmas time, and you know what's taking up all that slack? Aquaman. Aquaman is making a ton of money, and it's doing it because it has no real competition. The next big movie that comes out is Glass. That comes out in 2 weekends.
Right. So next weekend, Aquaman again is what you're saying.
Yeah. The first weekend drop was only 23%.
I saw it. I did not like it, and I think somebody else saw it as well. Did not like it. Gene! Aquaman made a splash at the box office, but left me soaking wet. I was drowning in boredom. Jason Momoa is perfectly fine, but then there's Amber Heard, who is better seen than heard. It seemed like every guy was trying to spear her. Thank goodness it's not Nicole Kidman's only movie of the year, because it could have been a career destroyer.
Because she's in a movie called Destroyer.
Excuse me. At 2.5 hours long, frankly, I was hoping to be sleeping with the fishes. I give Aquaman 1 star. I've seen better movies this year involving boatloads of seamen.
Wow. Gene does not go to 1 star very often.
Unusual.
No. He loved so many other movies that were rather questionable, but he did not like this one.
Jeez.
Yeah. It looked. I think he didn't think it looked anything like the one from Hanna-Barbera. Although at the end of Aquaman, he starts to get blondish hair, long blondish hair. The highlights. Yes, Arthur Curry does. Okay,
Sonny, do you want to do a big boy review?
Yes. How about that?
So Aquaman picks up after the events of the terrible Justice League movie. We get a very brief origin of Aquaman. We learn that he is the half man, half Atlantean child of a princess of Atlantis and a human fisherman. And there's an action scene with a de-aged Nicole Kidman. And
Is she though?
Oh, ouch.
She was de-aged in pre-production.
She was de-aged. She's been de-aged in real life. But the all right. So origin, we learn Arthur Curry can kind of communicate with fishes. He can blah blah. Here's the thing about Aquaman that doesn't quite work for me. As Vic mentioned, it's 2.5 hours long, 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and you easily could have cut about 20 minutes or so if you got rid of all the Black Mantis stuff. Black Manta is the he's the like kind of nominal second tier villain.
You want to get rid of the Black Manta.
You want to get rid of Black Manta because he's not a very good character. And,
no. You
and
didn't say
he's
that. You're gonna have to delete that, Sonny.
And he's just not very interesting or good.
Which of the white characters would you like to get rid of, Sonny?
Would you knock it off, please, while I'm trying to do this? He is not a very good character. He exists solely to introduce a couple of action beats, which is fine, but you could just as easily have them with Atlantean characters, and it drags the whole thing down, slows it down. I will say, here's what I'll say in praise of this movie, which I actually more or less enjoyed. It feels like it feels like a mid-tier Marvel movie that is fun and more or less competent, and has an actual entertaining third act, unlike so many of these films, because it's so insane and nuts. I don't want to spoil it for people, but the imagery in that final battle kind of cracked me up. The reason the movie works is because Jason Momoa is actually very charismatic. He has actual charm and charisma, and he is fun to watch on screen. And even if he has the occasional difficulty delivering a kind of funny one-liner or a witty rejoinder, he still is great on the screen. Like my favorite moment in the movie comes early on, I think, where he's in a bar and these guys come up to him and they're like, "Hey, are you the fish man?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he's like getting ready for a fight, and they're like, can you take a selfie with us?" And then it's like, it's the film is just for the next couple of seconds just a series of photos. And the first one he's kind of scowling and he looks tough, and then the second one he's smiling, and then he's throwing back shots and he's drinking and he's drunk and everybody's having a great time. And like that is like I like this take on Aquaman, who is a dumb character, but this is a good version of a dumb character. I think. Aquaman has always been a silly character. I'm sorry if we have any Aquaman partisans out there, but he's a relatively dumb character, and this is it's not the grim and gritty 90s DC 0 hour version of Arthur Curry. It's not the kind of
one arm
wacky, like the one arm with a hook for a hand version. It's not the campy 1970s Super Friends version. It's his own kind of thing, and I think it's great. I mean, I like Jason Momoa.
You think it's great?
I think this version of Aquaman is great. It's as good as that character can be.
But so
I would say it's better than Captain America. He's more entertaining to watch than Chris Evans. I'll throw that out there. I'll bet in 3 months I'm saying that Jason Momoa was better than Brie Larson in Captain Marvel.
Well, that's fine. Okay,
I'm
not going to argue that.
But so I don't think this is high cinema. I don't think that this is a great movie, but I did find it fun, and I don't think that anyone who enjoyed, say, Black Panther can complain about this movie.
I did not find it fun. I found it boring. I dozed off at some point because I felt it was too long, and I fell asleep. And then I woke up, and I feel like I didn't miss anything. And I actually thought about walking out. I've never done this, but I stuck around for Lou Ferrigno in the Hercules movie. But I actually thought if I walked out now, would I miss anything? Would I I'm so glad I saw that? And I don't think I did. I just thought it was. I have a lot of issues with this movie, but we can circle back to that in a second. JVL, your thoughts?
I mean, to take the bait on Black Panther, there are two differences. Black Panther is not great cinema or high cinema either, but what it is very efficient storytelling and stuffed full of characters that you actually care about. And neither of those things are true about Aquaman. You are simply just trying to bait me with this, and I would appreciate it if you would admit, first of all, that as a storytelling mechanism, Aquaman is far inferior to Black Panther.
Arthur Curry
is characters that you care about. The only characters you really care about in Aquaman is Arthur Curry. Correct? You don't care about Mera.
Of course I care about Mera.
You don't care about Willem Dafoe.
I care about Dolph Lundgren. The year of Dolph Lundgren. He's back.
I thought to myself, he's back too, and how great it is. And I looked, he's been acting this entire time.
Yeah, but
his IMDb page
he's been
busy.
He's been
he has not been missing. He's just been
missing.
Working constantly for years and years and years. Nobody noticed.
And well, he's in it's weird because he's
how many of those were Universal Soldier movies?
and Expendables. So he was in 2 movies this year that both broke $100 million. That's what I think is quite remarkable back to back. So good for Dolph Lundgren. I'm so tired of CGI, and so just the whole thing with the battle under sea. I just sort of roll. My eyes glazed over.
I want to throw this out there. The underwater CGI battle was better than the battle at the end of Black Panther. I mean, just as a physical thing to look at.
Sure,
it was not janky and shoddy looking like the end of Black Panther was. The end of Black Panther looks
over Pepsi.
But
this is not one of them is not wildly better than the other.
I would argue that the final act of Aquaman is wildly better than the final act of Black Panther. The spectacle at the end of Black Panther looked bad. It looked bad, and it was confusingly shot without being without the screen being overwhelmed by stuff. Like, the fight between Black Panther and Killmonger was confusing to watch. They looked too similar. The screen was too darkly
they all
lit.
look alike.
The costumes that they were wearing were exactly the same, except for a very slight. No, the Black Panther fights Killmonger. They're both wearing the Black Panther
I'm
costume.
talking about the initial.
No.
Challenge.
That scene was fine. That scene is fine. Although even that scene looks kind of cheap, and if you when they pan up and you look at the mountainsides, it looks so fake and computer generated. I'm sorry. So I would argue that on the terms of big spectacle, action, adventure filmmaking, Aquaman is superior to Black Panther.
This is an amazing swerve. Vic, if I had told you that
Gene gave it 1 star,
we were going to show up and Sonny was going to be defending the artistic integrity of Aquaman, would you have taken that action?
No way.
I have some questions.
I do too, but I will say this, Sonny. We were talking about in a previous episode my concerns about how are they going to handle the underwater scenes. And I thought they actually did fine because they have the wavy hair. So a lot of movies, after a while, they just give up. And, okay, pretend it's underwater, but we're all just doing our thing. And they had the wavy hair, and the lighting is a little bit different, the way it would look underwater. But obviously, they're not filming people underwater. If you ever see, like, The Abyss or even the underwater scenes in Splash, they look completely different because the lighting, everything is different underwater. So I thought that they handled that and their movements pretty well. It's convincing enough. I will say it was convincing enough. That said, I had a lot of questions. I didn't know Aquaman had similar to Superman powers of he seems to be invulnerable to bullets and blades. Is that
but
true?
Not Atlantean steel. Because Atlantean steel
is that why?
Is more powerful than the explosive force generated by an RPG. Did you know that, Victorino?
No,
that wasn't an
RPG.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm glad I know now. Also, how did they get? I hated the desert scene. I thought the desert scenes were terrible. Why they were in the desert?
You didn't like Pitbull's version of Africa? You didn't? Come on. You couldn't laugh out loud while that, because I did. I laughed out loud in the theater.
It's ridiculous.
I was like, "This is ridiculous and fun.
Ridiculous,
this is so much fun."
I didn't think about it fun. I didn't think it was fun. I just thought it was ridiculous. They jumped out and they can land. They don't need to.
They can survive a fall from 10,000 feet.
So they can do that without anything. And how did they get from the desert to Sicily? Did they fly? They fly too? Is it like flying fish? How did they get to Sicily? I had the same questions at Madagascar too. by the way? How do they get to Monte Carlo or wherever? So that was my concern. But wait a minute.
They just swam there from the ocean, from the desert ocean.
Through the desert ocean.
Through the desert ocean.
Okay, and why is it that in Sicily, every battle scene, they're breaking through these walls into homes that all look like the inside of Sur La Table? You ever see that place? There's all the little bottles of olive oil everywhere. What is her power? She turned the glass or the liquid into blade.
She can control water. It seems pretty obvious from the context of the film that she controls water.
And she can make it sharp, I guess, because I think she killed those Aqua stormtroopers with blades of wine. Okay.
It's pretty great. You know what else?
Question, Sonny. JVL, please help me.
Why are there fiery explosions underwater when none of the vehicles contain fossil fuels or oxygen atmospheres? Question. Does Atlantean physiology follow Lamarckian evolution? Because in the space of 1,000 years, the Atlanteans have gone from humans to Aquaman to fish heads or trench monsters. Question. How is it that only high-born Atlanteans can breathe oxygen? Is that the product of Lamarckian evolution too? Why is this? What is the specific evolutionary mechanism by which wealthy undersea creatures who never go to the surface evolve to breathe oxygen, but middle-class undersea creatures who never go to the surface do not? Question. In Atlantis, the giant undersea city, we see whales and sea turtles are being used to haul freight. Are these special Atlantean whales and sea turtles that don't need to return to the surface to breathe oxygen? Question. Why does Black Manta's father decide to fire an automatic weapon indiscriminately in a small steel-enclosed space when they board the Russian boomer? Shouldn't the ricochets have killed everyone in the room? Question. Why does Black Manta decide to take the special Atlantean Super Soaker, which is a rifle? It can be fired in many different directions.
You call it a super soaker?
While allowing the user's head to pivot independently and adapt it into an eye laser, which has a much smaller useful range of motion. Why would a Special Forces soldier want a helmet-based weapon which dramatically reduces his field of vision and mobility? Isn't that counter-doctrine? Question. How long did it take Black Manta to disassemble the Atlantean tech and create his supersuit? Because he must be like Tony Stark levels of genius, and it took Tony Stark weeks to build his first suit of armor. I'm just saying. Question. In the beginning, Queen Tightface in the bodysuit with the silver scales says that there's no place that she and her family can go where the Atlanteans won't be able to get them. I know a place. It's called Indiana. There aren't any oceans anywhere. They could have just gone to Indiana, and then they could have been safe together for forever.
But
he's a lighthouse keeper. Where's he going to run a lighthouse in Indiana?
And she was able to.
He couldn't abandon his calling.
You're asking him to give up his
of the sea.
You're asking him to give up his livelihood, his life's work, so he can go be a corn farmer. Is ridiculous.
Did you like her trench monster disguise, Nicole Kidman's?
Her trench monster armor?
Yes. It was very
much like the actual the armor that the Wasp is wearing. Not the Wasp. The wife is wearing an Ant-Man.
In Michelle Pfeiffer.
Right, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah. Absolutely. Very similar.
I don't mean this to nitpick the silly movie logic to death, but merely to underscore a point which I've made numerous times before, that movies which involve preposterous suspensions of disbelief as your sort of price of entry, which is all superhero movies, have a duty to the audience not to make stupid, avoidable mistakes that are only there simply because the director made the wrong choice, right? Like the sea turtles and whales, you can have any damn fish creature you want hauling those things. Why, in an enclosed space where nobody can get to the surface, do you choose whales and sea turtles? Which
they have the air pockets though. Maybe they just go breathe in the air pockets.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, why do you have fiery explosions? All of these things are just nothing. Because
fire looks cool. I don't understand.
By making slightly different choices there, it shows a disrespect for the audience. And
I would say
the audience doesn't deserve their respect because the audience has ate this crap up anyway.
I would say the bigger problem with this movie, from a storytelling logical issue, is what exactly is the King Orm Ocean Master character's plan to unite all? It basically sounds like he has to suck up to Dolph Lundgren, and then he's just going to kill all the other kings.
All the others, right?
And take their. Is that how it works? I don't quite. But like, doesn't he need their assent to become Ocean Master if he just goes and kills everyone?
Right. Then
is that the same thing? Like that was the movie ends basically with a giant fight between the Atlanteans and a bunch of crab monsters who I guess were also Atlanteans at one point, but are now
these
crab
are all
people.
Evolutionary over the course of 1,000 years. They all went from being Atlanteans.
I think it's
crab
more than
monsters.
1,000 years, right?
No,
This is
no, they say
1,000 years. Oh,
You're
well.
saying they're devolving. They're devolving. They're going into these things, including the young fish princess.
The
Leads
fish
her little kingdom as well. Now,
Well, she's only the queen because he kills the king.
yes, that was a terrible scene. I'm very sad. The thing
Jamin
about
Hunsu, right?
the
Doing
voice, I
yeah.
believe so. The Manta becomes Black Manta, and he's told that when you have the Atlantean steal all this stuff, he will now become basically invincible. But he was handled pretty well, and I think he was disposed of in Sicily.
Well,
It didn't last long.
he's a
It was
bad
kind
character. He's a bad character, and the fact that they have a teaser at the end suggesting he will be in the sequel is like not a good
thank
sign.
you. I skipped it. What was
Not a good sign.
Tell me the stinger because I walked.
The stinger is he's floating in the ocean, and the who's that actor? He's from Veep, and he plays
Tony Hale.
No, he's the scientist who he's the scientist earlier in the film who's talking about Atlantis being a thing, and everyone kind of dismisses him.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
Chung.
that guy,
Chung.
he shows up in a boat and pulls Black Manta into the boat. He's like, "Tell me about Aquaman," and then I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, now I'm going to have to tune in.
That's dumb.
That was.
I mean, I want to. There were. I mean, I really didn't like the movie. I found it not enjoyable. There were two things I found to like about it. The one visually stunning shot is as Arthur and Mara are diving off of the little fishing boat, holding the flare, heading down. Because what they do is they treat it as if there's a giant glass pane, like you're almost looking into an aquarium as they go underwater. That was lovely.
Yeah.
Right. You see all the
quite a
fishmen, trench creatures following
Scary.
them. That was pretty great. And I here's where I agree with you on Jason Momoa. I agree with you on the take of the character. I think this is the best possible interpretation of a bad character. I like Jason Momoa on screen in the character. I agree that he's charismatic on screen. But what I keep running up against is that he is charismatic on screen and yet not a good actor. And I can't remember another actor whom I felt pulled. Like when he says, with that line that he opens the movie with, Jules Verne once wrote, anytime Momoa has to say anything that's longer than like 15 words, it sounds like he's reading off cue cards.
Yeah.
And I would say his tone of voice makes it highly suspect that he has ever read a book. Right? I mean, he does not sell that line as if, he once read this Jules Verne book.
Right.
He is simply reading a page of script in front of him. And it is so every time he has to talk for more than like, hey, I dig it. Just
the voiceover was a giant mistake, and if they were going to do a voiceover, they should have had it voiced by Willem Dafoe or something.
Right.
I mean, you could have had
Anthony
it voiced by
Hopkins.
an entirely different character in the movie.
I would say he was not deployed always to optimal effectiveness. The director understanding what his limitations are should have saved him a few times.
There was also a moment in Sicily where suddenly he becomes like Gibbon. He's a Roman historian. He's like, wait a minute, I can tell the difference between the princes and the kings here. And she's like, how did you know that? Or, generals. And he goes, oh, my father made sure I was...
The lighthouse keeper.
The lighthouse keeper had him brushed up on his history. But I think, like JVL, I was not convinced that Aquaman was that much of a historian.
But here, so in fairness, again, my favorite moment in the whole movie is in the initial fight inside the sub when he finds out that the other guy who has just come in and shot him with the RPG is the Black Manta character's father. And his immediate response is not anger at the kid, but anger at the father. And he says, that's your kid, shame on you.
Yeah.
It's this great little character moment where it's clear that he understands fathers and sons, and it's revealing the character. And Momoa is great there because he's throwing it away. That's again, this is what I'm trying to say is he's being well served by the script there because he's not being asked to do a whole lot. But
my biggest
the script
disappointment
doesn't always do that.
My biggest disappointment with the film, beside the Black Manta character who was basically disposable. Or could have been. You could have gotten rid of him after that first scene, I think,
and never had him,
never had him, never brought him back. It is the fact that they don't try to, and this is going to be a very idiosyncratic thing that only I'm going to care about. But like, I am disappointed that they did not take the opportunity to tie it back to the rest of the DC movies and show that Aquaman has decided to become a more pronounced hero, because he is following the example set by Superman. He has been inspired to like come back. You could have added just a little bit of depth to it there, and kind of continued with the overall theme of the whole universe, which has been, again, the reaction of the world to the arrival of Superman. And it just like you could have done it in like 2 minutes. You could have thrown it away in that discussion in the bar where he's having with his dad.
There was one reference to Steppenwolf. That was it. So I had a thought about Black Manta. I don't know how much in the comic books is there an origin story of Black Manta, but they made it seem like he is the grandson of Carl Brashear or Cuba Gooding Jr. in that movie Men of Honor, right? The first Black Navy diver.
Basically.
I think that's it. So that was interesting. In terms of the perfs, Sonny, the perfs. I was not big. I like Amber Heard, but I didn't think she was that.
Great costume.
What's
Great
with
costume
the Little
design.
Mermaid hair? The Little Mermaid color.
There is zero screen chemistry between she and Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
This is a textbook example of what happens when your two leads just don't work on screen. And maybe they're best friends off screen. I don't know. But on screen, man, there is nothing going on between them.
Did you like Patrick Wilson?
I thought he was fine. It's kind of a nothing character. It is amusing to me that the two villains in this are an environmentalist, basically, who wants to clean up the oceans, and, how to put this delicately, the grandson of a man who has been
wrongly
racially discriminated against by America, and so he has decided to go out and be a pirate.
And they're both villains?
They're both the villains. Very problematic. Very troubling.
I like Patrick Wilson, but as you say, it's not much of a character, not much range. I like Patrick Wilson in the underrated Lakeview Terrace. Did you see that? With Samuel Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
And he's jealous because his wife is black, and it's terrifying. So I thought that...
He's also in The Great Watchmen, of course. He plays Night Owl.
Okay, there you go. And also Little Children, which our friend John Podhoretz says is a terrifying movie. I don't know. I find it interesting. I'm just saying.
Can we talk briefly about the Atlanteans? Because isn't the real villain in this the Atlantean culture? They're a bunch of racists. They're very, very anti-half-breeds.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of
mongrel.
They threw out the word mongrel.
They other the trench-dwelling crevice.
Well, to be fair, they are monsters. They are monsters.
Not by the end. By the end, they are on Aquaman's side.
Well,
Arthur
he's
brings
like
them
controlling them with the.
No, he's talking to them.
They're the real good guys.
He's able to hear. He's not just listening. He's able to hear.
Sonny.
Wait, right. Or is it he's not able to hear? Whatever.
Well, I thought he was just controlling them.
No, he doesn't control any. That's the whole thing, right? Is that he's able to talk.
I will say the use of the Aquaman talking to fish powers is in this movie better than it has ever been in anything else.
Yeah,
like communicating with the Cthulhu monster at the bottom of the ocean, like an actual nice touch. Very interesting use of the
Julie
powers.
Andrews' voice. Is that correct? I saw that on IMDb.
I think so. Yeah.
So he has that power. But again, the other thing that you brought up is who's breathing and who's not breathing in the air.
My God.
Okay.
But no, the Atlanteans are monsters, and their culture deserves to be subjugated and reformed, right? I mean, a culture which sacrifices women who happen to have prior marriages and we talk about
marriages.
that it has arranged marriages and which holds its weird like orthodoxies of law so tight that like you can go and destroy the surface world so long as you've satisfied the four conditions. This is almost Talibanic, is it not?
So you're saying that the bad guys in this movie are the bad guys?
I'm saying that
not the Trenchmen.
It establishes some problems with the Atlantean culture that maybe the surface dwellers need to go. What you're
saying is we need to fight them under there, so we don't have to fight them over here.
Basically,
okay. Basically, yeah, that sounds good to me. You look, I'm never gonna turn that down.
Do you have any other Aquaman thoughts, JVL, Sonny?
No.
Okay. I thank you again for. Was there just one stinger?
There was a mid-credits scene, no end credits scene.
Okay.
It's my understanding. I didn't sit through to the end credits.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me know that Black Manta did not die, unlike our friend Mean Gene Okerlund, who this week died at the age of 76. A terrific announcer, straight man with AWA, WCW, WWFE, JVL. You have thoughts?
Mean Gene is the most influential person in the wrestling industry not to have been either an in-ring performer or a back office corporate guy. He occupied this strange position where he was just an interviewer, but he wasn't actually an interviewer. His job was putting people over, right? And so in the days of early WWF, when the Vince McMahon was forging the industry by combining the territories and starting an hour-long TV show that was national in reach, a lot of these guys couldn't do promos on their own. They couldn't talk on their own because they weren't especially good. And so it was up to Mean Gene to be their interlocutors. And I would say Mean Gene was essentially the Brian Lamb of the WWF. It was not about him.
No, it was never about him.
It was always setting people up, and it was fantastic. He got the name Mean Gene, was given to him, the moniker, by Jesse the Body Ventura, and it was sort of like calling a big guy tiny. It was because he was just this very pleasant, hard partying, hard drinking guy. Had 2 kidney replacements over the course of his life and drank all the way to the end. He was the best man at the Iron Sheik's wedding. He was tremendous, and it's very sad to see him gone. You must have loved Mean Gene back in the day. When you and I were watching wrestling.
I was always concerned
in the tux. Always in the tux.
Was it the white jacket? Was he sometimes white or was it black?
No, black jacket with a red bow tie, and a cummerbund.
I was always concerned for Mean Gene's welfare because I thought that at some point the wrestlers would attack him.
Well, he would do a lot of cowering, right?
He's interviewing Bobby the Brain or some other jerk,
and he would stand behind them, holding the microphone out to them, right? Because they were actually still using handheld mics back then.
Yeah. But I don't know. When I watched it as a kid, I was always afraid. I said, I hope they don't beat him up because But he seems to be asking questions that might upset them. That was my big thing with Mean Gene. But no, he was great, and he will be missed. I think the Iron Sheik said on Twitter, please give Nikolai Volkov a hug.
Yeah, wasn't that sweet?
You almost get the sense that they're all friends behind the scenes. I don't know.
Sonny, is Mean Gene just predate you? Because he was in the WCW when you were watching WCW.
No. Mean Gene was a staple of my my childhood. He was always weirdly sane in a totally insane setting. Like, he's a perfect straight man.
Perfect straight.
It's just the thing. I don't know. It's weird to think of wrestling without Mean Gene Okerlund, but I also kind of stopped watching while he was still doing it. Well, he will always be there for me, I guess, in my mental image of wrestling.
But what he was able to do is he was this perfect straight man, but he was perfect straight man both for the heels and the faces. And so he would very slightly modulate how he helped present them and let them out. It was great. If you were a bad guy who was dying to get over, Mean Gene would set you up to look like the biggest jerk in the world.
Right.
It was fantastic.
That was a tough week. We lost him. We lost Bob Einstein, the great Bob Einstein, the comedian, also at age 76, who, aside from being on Curb and obviously Super Dave Osborne, also had a little role in Arrested Development. If you remember, when Bluth is in jail, he has a proxy and he pipes in the audio.
Okay.
Yeah, and he would just
he's
repeat everything.
He's the guy who's standing there in the room for George Bluth.
Great guy. And Captain from Captain and Tennille died. Okay, any other thoughts, gentlemen?
I have a correction.
Oh, good. Corrections additions.
From our friend Adam Kuiper. There were, in fact, not 2, but 4 standard McNugget shape units.
Oh.
Okay, let me guess. One with a handle.
They have specific names.
Really?
Per the corporate nomenclature.
Go for it then. Just tell
the
me.
Bone, the Ball, the Bell, and the Boot is how McDonald's corporate referred to its chosen shapes.
The Ball, you said, there's one that's perfectly like a
perfectly
circle.
Round,
that's
right.
That's fine with me. And what's the other one? The Bell?
The Bell.
Huh.
And the Bone.
Mm. Yeah. I like the ones that sometimes had white meat in it. It was quite nice.
Were that? Did any of them do that?
Not till later.
Yeah, but I mean, were they like actual? Well, you both worked at McDonald's. Were they actual chicken, or was it ground chicken? And don't tell me.
Well, this is like a whole thing.
So it just comes in a giant plastic bag.
It comes. They're already right there. But I mean, like this was the pink slime. This is the whole thing with McDonald's. I did want to say thank you to our friend Jonah Goldberg, who gifted us a bottle of Jefferson's Reserve.
Oh.
He came over here to tape a episode of The Remnant and brought a little podcast warming gift. So thank you very much. That was very nice. It's not here in the studio because we're taping at 10:26 in the morning, and we're not that degenerate. But I've been drinking it in my office by myself.
I saw you with it just the other. I'm like, all right, I'm going home now. Okay, I'll leave
what you doing in there, son?
I said, okay, enjoy.
Rough day yesterday.
It was, and I want thank you again. Thank you again to friends who have resubscribed and new people who told me they clicked the subscribe button. So friends from back home, Pat Alcacy, Dave Kalijin, and another guy who said he clicked subscribe named Andrew Ferguson. I don't know if he's actually going to listen.
As long as he downloads it.
You shake
Zero
your head.
chance of that.
And make sure to tell your friends, leave reviews. We need reviews.
Please,
will
keep it coming.
Just click that 5-star button.
We need it.
It'll get us back in the. Maybe we can get to number 8 on the charts this week.
Let's do it. If we all coordinate, I think it's all about that algorithm and how it worked out. But it was electric when that happened. I'm curious about how many listeners we got, but that's very exciting. Okay. That is all the time we're giving to this episode. Questions, comments, complaints, compliments. Tweet us at Victorina Mattis, at Sonny Bunch.
At JV Last. He'll be back on Twitter. Everyone comes back.
Again, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play. Just type in Sub Beacon under podcasts. We're there. Leave a review. Tell your friends. Until next time. I have one thought. I don't know if you have thoughts. I just want to throw it out there. Okay, I am throwing it out there. Don't judge me. I'm just throwing it out there. Before Aquaman, did anyone see a trailer for a movie called Alita: Battle Angel?
Yes, I did.
Sonny, tell me, what did you think? What did you think when you saw that trailer, and what did you feel when you saw that trailer?
Well, I'm not a pervert, so I didn't feel anything down there.
Neither did I,
Vic. I actually am kind of excited for this movie. I don't know. It looks kind of insane, and it looks like they may have been able to do an anime movie right. Even though I like Ghost in the Shell, I think we all like Ghost in the Shell, didn't we?
I loved it.
It
was no Aquaman.
It was no Aquaman, but it was pretty good.
Is Alita's body an actual human, and only the face is anime? And that's why are you laughing?
Anime! It's back.
This is not a loaded question.
Anime.
It's an honest question.
Anime,
How do
Vic.
they do it technologically? Is it a human's body with an anime face?
They actually cut a woman's head off, and they stuck it to a machine.
It's not a real. Oh,
and
okay.
It's running around. I don't know, Vic.
Did
I make the movie?
It's
How would
like,
I know?
You know what? I looked at it and I'm like, this is like kind of like you hear these crazy stories about those Japanese dolls, and it's like they brought one to life Pinocchio style, and her name is Alita. That's what I thought. But she's only half human, so it's like only half wrong. Right?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Whatever. I'm sure it's fine, Vic. I'm sure whatever you do to battle Angel Alita is fine.